Hi, it's Tina, tourism trainer, facilitator, clarity coach and founder of the Tourism Space. Tourism is changing because visitors are changing. Visitors are looking for something new and something different all the time. We've been hearing how tourism has moved from visitors looking for product to visitors looking for experiences, and even now we're starting to move into the post-experience phase where visitors are looking for authenticity, looking to meet the local people, looking to really experience the local place. And as visitors look for that, a pursuit of this authentic localhood, it means that tourism, the nature of tourism businesses, may be changing significantly. Because to deliver those type of experiences, we are going to need many more solo entrepreneurs and very small and medium-sized enterprises moving into tourism to deliver these local, authentic experiences. So we're likely to see more entrepreneurs setting up tourism businesses and likely to see existing businesses diversify into tourism. So examples might be somebody who likes surfing who sets up a surfing school in an area with appropriate surfing conditions. Or you might find a chef who sets up a restaurant. Or you might find an existing business, as we see a lot right now in food tourism and craft tourism, a cheese business that diversifies into offering a cheese experience. So all these new types of enterprises on a small scale moving into tourism to meet the opportunity. And as I was thinking about this, I was reminded of this book, a famous book called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber, and apparently a must-read for most small entrepreneurs. And Michael looks at the question of why small businesses fail and how we can prevent that happening. And I just wanted to share my thoughts with you on what he says and how that might apply to tourism. So one of the things he talks about is a massive false assumption that's made, that just because you are good at the technical skill of a business, that you will also be good at the skill of running a business that delivers that technical skill. So for example, he says it may be a false assumption that just because you're a good chef does not mean that you will be good at running a restaurant, that they are actually two completely different things. And that's what we're asking for in tourism all the time. We're asking for people who are good at a particular skill to get good at delivering a visitor experience that's based on that skill. And that might be an assumption that we need to challenge. And as part of that, Michael asks to look at the idea of the personality of the business owner. Not their own personality, their traits, but the business personalities that they have to play in order to make a successful business. And he talks about a split personality of 3 different types, and all 3 being important for the business to succeed. So I just want to have a look at those and talk through them a little bit. The first type of personality he speaks about is the entrepreneur. So that's number 1. That's the person who sees the business opportunity, who sees the potential and decides they're going to go after it. The second personality is the manager. And that's the person who does the work of getting this business off the ground. So the person who sets up the website, packages an experience, puts a price on it, tries to sell it, hires people, gets all the mechanics of the business in place. That's the manager. And the third personality is the technician. And that's the person who actually does the business. So if the business was walking tours, for example, that's the actual giving of the tour. So there are the 3 personalities, and what the title of the book is The E-Myth. What Michael says is, the myth is that the entrepreneur is in charge, that the business was set up by an entrepreneur who saw an opportunity and went after it and created a new business. In reality, the experience from researching lots and lots of businesses across different industries is that the technician is in charge, that it was the technician who had an entrepreneurial idea that then transferred into a business, but all the while the person remained in the personality of the technician. So what happens is the person who enjoyed walking becomes a walking guide in a walking business, but spends all their time guiding and trying to manage and run the business, and eventually ends up getting swallowed up by it. And even though at the beginning they saw this idea of running a business to give them freedom, to give them control, to earn more money for themselves rather than for somebody else, they find that they end up having none of those things, that the business is running them and that they're more enslaved than they ever were. And that's the reason a lot of businesses fail. So let's look a bit more at the personalities to see what we can do to avoid running into that type of difficulty. So the entrepreneur, the first person, that's the person with the vision. That's the person who's constantly looking for opportunities and potential, and that's all they see all around them. They've great imagination, they're creative, they're strategic, and they see what the end is like. They see what the end destination is like. They know what this business is like when it's finished. That's the entrepreneur. The manager, like I said, is the systems person. That's the planner, that's the organizer, that's the person who looks around and doesn't see the opportunities but sees the problems and sees the challenges and puts in place things to counteract them. That's the person who looks more to the past because they've learned so much from the past, they know what will work to keep things ticking well right now. And the third person is the technician, and that's the person who does. That's the person who doesn't do all the thinking these two does, but just gets on with the job. Thinks insofar as it enables them to do the job, works as an individual, focuses on the task in hand, and is very present orientated. So you can see how each of the three brings a lot to the business. You can see how each of the three is needed to make a successful business. But you can probably also see how they can be in conflict with each other quite regularly. Here you have this person dreaming about the future and all that's possible. And here you have this person who's trying to rein that back in and seeing all the problems that that future is going to create, so trying to maintain the status quo. And then you have this person over here who's fed up of all the thinking these two are doing and just wants to get on with it, just wants to do what we need to do, and let's keep this show on the road. So you can see the conflict as well. The ideal thing is that the three work in harmony and that there's a balance between them. And you would think, yeah, there probably is a balance, that's what we're likely to think. The reality is, and what the research has shown, according to Gerber and other studies as well, is that in terms of time as a single business owner, and even as business as units in terms of the activity, about 10% of the time lives here in the entrepreneurial personality. 20% is devoted to the management personality and managerial functions, and a whopping 70% is spent on the technical work of the business. And that makes sense. You do have to do the day-to-day to keep the business running, but the disparity in balance there is really quite shocking. 10% looking to the future, 20% maintaining the status quo, and 70% fully in the present. And that's like the analogy of somebody baking bread all day long just to eat it for supper that night, get up the next day and do it all again, same thing, and day after day. And that's what happens as businesses get caught in the 70 and even more percent on the technical side of things. The technician runs themselves into the ground, keeping things going, flops at the end of the day exhausted, gets up the next day and does it all again, working really hard, keeping it all going. And as we know, there's an end in sight on that one. That can't keep going forever. And that's the point at which businesses fail. So the important thing, I guess, is to be aware of the three different personalities and to think about how can you keep them in balance. How do you keep all three happy? How do you satisfy the needs of the three? And how do you make that work for your business? So I'm going to suggest that maybe this is the one that tends to get the least amount of time, So building in processes that allows your inner entrepreneur out and have the same say in your business as your technician and your manager would be a good thing to do. And the reason for that is the entrepreneur is future orientated and outer orientated. They're seeing the opportunities and the potential and what's coming down the line. So if you spend time here as a technician with your head down, not realizing what's going on around you, you're going to miss those opportunities. The entrepreneur is also the creative and the visionary. The visionary is the person who's able to tap into what you as a business owner want from your business. What's the business meant to deliver for you? The entrepreneur is able to separate the owner from the actual business and to realize that the business should serve the owner and not the other way around. So the visionary unleashes the creativity that might be needed to bring you towards that vision. The visionary also challenges your imagination. It challenges you to think of different ways of doing things, and it challenges the status quo. It won't live in the present and in the past. It will always be pushing you outwards towards the future. So while you don't want that to dominate, you certainly need to move that towards the 30-40% part of your business. So here's a few little tips that might help you do that. One thing is just to break things down like this for yourself. If you're the only person in the business or the senior manager, draw a little organizational chart for yourself that just maps out your time. Deconstruct what you do into managerial, technical and entrepreneurial, and even that awareness is going to help you. Once you've done that, you can do a rough estimate of where your time is going. Is it similar to what we have here, to the average? Is it more balanced? And if it's not balanced, you'll quickly see where you need to devote more time to. either through changing where you emphasize your time or through bringing in additional expertise and other people to help you. The other thing you can do is have a mentor. There are people who've done this before. There are people who've had similar visions or similar scale visions who've been able to make these transitions from starting the business to scaling it out and making it serve. So see if there's a mentor who might be willing to share their experience and advice with you. Another option is to get a professional coach and really brief them to help you keep on track with your vision, to ask you about your entrepreneurial side and to pose those questions that can be hard to pose yourself and that challenge your imagination and challenge your status quo. If you don't want a formal coach, you could also just ask a friend or a partner to do that. Maybe once a month have a particular 1 hour cup of coffee where they ask you questions that inspire a little bit your vision and get you talking about that and refocused onto that. And the last thing you can do is that you can embed visioning as a process in your business. That we have a lot of technical procedures, all the technical work has a procedure. We know how we want to run our business. We know how we want to deliver the experience. The manager has systems. There are lots of systems in place to make sure the business runs smoothly. So add to that the processes, the process of entrepreneurship and visioning that you embed in your business as a focal point of your business so that it gets more than 10% of your time and closer to 30 and 40% of your time. So that's it. I hope that serves you, even if it just jiggles up your perspective just for today. Have a look at your own business, see is your balance right. Hope to see you again, and in the meantime, here's to your lasting success.